What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you have experienced? I used to have a pet turtle when I was younger. One morning I woke up and was walking to my kitchen when there was my turtle crawling on the floor. I picked him up and looked in his aquarium and my turtle was still there. My parents didn't buy me another turtle and we have no idea where it came from. For the longest time in my life when I would hear random noises that were out of this world. Sometimes it was static or explosions. I found out later that I have a disorder known as exploding head disorder. It's basically your brain glitching when transitioning into sleep. Scared the crap out of me before I found out. Not sure if this counts as glitch in the Matrix, but when I was young, I was sitting watching TV when I heard a few loud bangs as if someone fell down the stairs. I ran out to see, but there was nothing there. Just as I went back to sit down, my brother fell down the stairs. When I was about 15, I remember having a dream, but all it was black and talking. I remember hearing my mom saying, "It's almost done, you're doing great, it's gone," but I didn't think anything of it. About 3 months later my earrings got embedded inside my ears and I had to go to hospital to get them cut out. While there they sprayed freeze spray onto my ear. The spray went into my ear and obviously touched my eardrum, knocking me out, but I could still hear things. While out, all I saw was black and my mom said the exact same things to me that I heard in my dream the few months before. No one believes me, but it was crazy. Edit. Wow, thanks for so many replies and upvotes. I didn't think my story would be so interesting. I was trying to sleep late at night and the t-shirt that I was wearing was getting itchy. So I took my shirt off while still in bed and threw it from the top bunk of my bunk bed. I heard it drop to the floor, but I kept on hearing it drop to the ground over and over again, and this went on for a while. I was wide awake and I knew I wasn't hearing shit. Still confused about it, but I never seemed to mention it till today. Edit. This is getting out of hand. I was 12. Was spending the day at an amusement park with a neighbor and one of his classmates. I'd never met the classmate before, but he was a cool guy and we're all chilling, going on roller coasters, spending money on the stupid ring toss game and not winning anything. And then we're going to go grab food. And he was about to go grab some chocolate bar and I went, "Dude, you're allergic to peanuts." Because he was about to eat something with peanuts in it. I'd never met the guy before. My friend never talked about him before. But not only did I have the feeling that this guy was allergic to peanuts, I turned out to be accurate. He was like, "Damn. How did you know?" And we agreed that there was no real explanation. Life is just weird sometimes, and went back to riding roller coasters. Never saw that guy again. Took off my glasses because something made me laugh so hard I cried. Went to bathroom. Washed face. Came back. Glasses gone. 2 weeks pass. I have new glasses. Got home from a friend's house. Take off shoes. Call from friend less than 5 minutes later. Forgot something at his house. Go to put on shoes. Missing glasses folded perfectly. Sitting on top of my shoes. So calculatedly evenly split between both shoes it looked like an art display. Edit. The friend never entered my house. When I was 10. I was homeless-ish and lived in an 8-foot camper. My bedroom was the top bunk thing. I'm laying there and my jeans were annoying me, as they were next to my head. So I flung them towards my feet. They flew back at me immediately and went back where they were originally. This happened 2 times in a row. I have no idea why they would move on their own. This still creeps me out. Edit. This story does not work very well in text format. Every morning on my way to work I'd go through a shopping mall. On a bench in the mall there would sit an elderly man appearing to wait for someone. The guy was fairly anonymous but always had some small flair that made him look like he was trying to be hip but not really making it. A golfer's cap. A vest. Logger boots etc. Every morning when I walked by I noticed him and always wondered who he was waiting for. For 4 years as I walked by I never saw him actually meeting someone. I get a new job and start work in another part of town. 3 days in, when I walk from the subway towards work, the same guy is sitting on a bench waiting for someone. Edit. Wow. My by far most upvoted comment. And on my birthday. I suppose I will have to walk up and talk to the guy now, and just by that guarantee the dude is gone forever. I share my name with my great-grandfather on my father's side. I never met him. He died 20 years before I was born. He was apparently 6 feet tall. Eccentric. Obsessed with intellectual pursuits. But was so prone to getting lost in thought that he would forget to do important things. The rest of the entire family is fairly short. My father is otherwise the tallest at 5 feet 8 inches. Very straight-laced. Conservative. Blue collar. Then there's me. Apparently the second coming of my great-grandfather. Height. Tendencies. Personality. General appearance and all. A week before I got married, my brother was going through old records and discovered my great-grandfather's wife, who no living family member ever met. She died young in the 1930s, had the same name as mine, my wife's. Am I just reused content? Creepy. You're a repost, P. As a kid, like at a really young age, I used to have incredibly realistic dreams of things that hadn't happened yet. To clarify, I had weird dreams of completely mundane things generally, and then they would happen shortly after, usually within a couple days. For this reason, it became hard to differentiate between dream and reality. As a result, I spent years believing my brother had stabbed me in the back with a butter knife. But it, from what my parents tell me, never happened. I guess it was just one of the dreams. It's so weird though, because it was just so real. The memory of being stabbed is stronger than most memories. And every so often, this spot on my back, right where I had dreamed I was stabbed, well, it tingles. I don't know if this counts because I was high, but it counts, so shut up and listen. This is also why I stopped smoking weed up. I would sit in my car outside my friend's house in the same spot to smoke. We'd all get in the car and hotbox it or whatever. And then we kept having the same conversation. Like, word for word. It was like deja vu except for hours, and it happened every time I got high. I started thinking aliens were controlling my brain or some shit. It was terrifying. So yeah, I can't smoke weed anymore. One night, when I was about 18, I guess I was out for a drink with a friend. Just had 1 or 2 beers. Not much. I went back home and I fell to sleep pretty quickly watching Skins. Lights on. Around 2 or 3 AM I woke up in a heartbeat. Like if I just had a nightmare, but not remembering anything about that. I notice the lights are on, and a second after, all my room goes dark. I feel pretty stressed out at this point, so I get out of my bed to put the lights on again, wondering how this happened. At this moment I start to feel a pain in my hand, and when I finally put the lights on, I take a look and I'm seriously bleeding from my hand. No idea how that happened again. Went out of the house, smoked a cig and went back to sleep. Never had any explanation. Several years ago I stopped to get gas on my way to meeting my GF at the time for dinner. This was a little before smartphones starting coming out, so all I had was a silver flip phone. Getting out of the car I managed to drop it on the ground and then kick it right as a car drove by. It was run over and shot out from under the car's tire across the gas station lot. I found it all scratched up. It wasn't smashed, but wouldn't turn on. I spent most of the dinner annoyed because I was semi-broke and didn't want to have to pay for a new phone. When we got back to our apartment, the first thing I saw walking in was my silver flip phone sitting on the kitchen counter. Somehow I managed to hallucinate dropping and then kicking my phone. Watch it get shot across the lot. And then finding an exact duplicate of it. The antenna on the top even had the same bite marks from where my cat had tried to eat it. Or else my phone spontaneously cloned and teleported itself onto my kitchen counter. Turned the washing machine's dial from end to start. Turned around. Picked up the detergent. Turned back around and the dial was sitting at end. Not sure if glitch in the matrix or early onset dementia. Was out to dinner with my BF, at the time, in a very crowded, very loud Thai restaurant about 9 years ago. We were practically yelling at each other across the table, trying to maintain a conversation over the hustle and bustle. Then out of nowhere, all the noise stops completely. All at once. I stopped talking mid-sentence, because I realized I was yelling in a silent room. Every hair on my body stood on end. Everyone around us was silent and still. The kitchen sounded motionless. Everything was absolutely quiet for maybe about 2 minutes. Then, as quickly as the silence fell, the restaurant came back to life. Never happened again. Woke up this one morning about 10 years ago. Realized that the day before happened but had no recollection of what transpired. Did not have any drugs, alcohol or bump my head. Bits and pieces came back later that evening. I was probably about 14-15 when this happened. I'm done with school for the day and have tennis practice right after. So I'm walking outside to my bike. At the school exit entrance I pass a person entering the building. There was absolutely nothing special about the appearance of that person, but for some reason we locked eyes and I felt uneasy. It's hard to explain, but he was so average in appearance that he actually stood out to me. Anyway, I get on my bike and start pedaling fast because I'm running late. 1.5 kilometers later I'm on a straight sidewalk and I see a figure in the distance walking towards me. Sure enough, it's Mr. Average staring at me. There is no way he was able to get there before me on my bike in such a short time. I used all the shortcuts and was going pretty fast. So even if he left the school in a hurry in a car, he wouldn't have made it this far. I pass him again and about 5-10 seconds later decide to stop and turn around to look at him one more time, but Mr. Average had completely vanished. To this day I remember everything about that encounter clearly, since it seriously freaked me out. I borrowed a pair of Apple earbuds from one of my friends. I usually keep earbuds in my pockets, and one day after being home all day I pulled a second pair of identical headphones out of my pocket. It has happened twice now. I have 2 pairs of Apple earbuds and I gave the other pair back to my friend. I would assume I just grabbed another pair by mistake, but I don't get out much and no one in my family owns any Apple products. Hope I'm not too late. But yesterday, my sister and I were talking and she mentioned that on her way home from taking a friend to work, they saw a jet frozen in air. I thought it was fascinating and hoped I'd see it because I was going with her this time. Sure as shit. Exact same spot she had seen it last night. There was a jet ducking frozen in midair. I'm not gonna lie. I ducking flipped out. I was in absolute awe. But I had read that it's an illusion. So I stared at it for a good minute without it moving. Then, just like that, resumed flying. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if this can be classified as a glitch. And I have a feeling this might be common for a few other people, but here goes. Since I was young, off and on, I've experienced what is apparently called depersonalization. The very first time I was young, probably 6 or 7 years old. I remember clearly it was a very sunny day, and I was walking somewhere holding my mother's hand. It was the first time I'd been allowed to wear sandals instead of shoes. Where I lived there was a lot of broken glass on the pavements. We were waiting to cross a road and it happened. This sense of complete alienation from myself. I was not me. This body wasn't mine. I was just occupying it and I was something more. It was a very strange experience. It's happened probably 2 or 3 times since then. Just a feeling that I am unfamiliar with my own self. A stranger. It's also happened once with my brother, who I'm very close to. That day I looked at him and a feeling of who is this? Just a strange person who I call my brother. It lasts just a few seconds and is quite eerie. It's the familiarity you have about yourself and others, I suppose. The attachment disappears for a few seconds. Would be very interested to see if anyone else has experienced this. More commonly I think it happens with words. It loses its meaning and appears strange or foreign. Which I've also experienced. Edit. Seems like a common brain glitch. Interesting how no one really questions it. I occasionally get flashes or visions of things that happen again later. Recently, having a specific conversation at work. This was not a normal or routine conversation like did we get any mail. It was an unusual circumstance that led up to it, so I knew how it was going to go down and it did exactly that way. On the creepy end of the spectrum, I saw myself at a friend's funeral while he was still alive. He died unexpectedly a few weeks later. I knew that a client of mine would die within a year and he did. At the time he appeared perfectly healthy. But within the year he was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. I know that one cloudy morning, I will get the call in my car that my stepfather has passed away. He is in his 70s and suffers Parkinson's. So this one isn't that paranormal. I don't think. The creepiest one has yet to be fulfilled, and that is an image I have of a blue pickup truck on the wrong side of the road coming straight at me. If I do die in a car crash and it's with a blue pickup, can someone please post it so I get posthumous karma? I was sitting watching a thunderstorm in my car when I got this weird feeling. Like I had been sitting there with someone up until that moment. A sense that they were there. And I had known them for a long time. But suddenly, they had vanished from having ever existed. I still have their house key that was left behind, but no idea where they lived. I was in the living room with one of my dogs and she started acting really strange. Like she does when she needs to throw up. So I opened the back door and let her outside and went to go tell my nan, the only other person home. I went back to the door and she came back in but then left again. My nan told me to shut the door, but I told her the dog was still outside. My nan said that she had the dog, but I told her I had just seen the dog go outside, so I shut the door and went to see, and she was sitting by the bed with my nan. I'd been at my job for about a week. I get a call over the weekend that the woman who worked across the hall from me had been shot and killed on Friday evening by her psychotic ex-boyfriend. I went to work very early on Monday to get things done before the grief counselors got there. I was working and heard the clacking of a woman's shoes in the hallway. I poke my head out of my office door and see her, the dead woman, unlocking the door to her office and then walking inside, a beam of light shining on her from a window at the end of the hall. I freeze and stare, certain that this was the woman in question. As soon as I'm able, I go back into my office and sit until I regain my composure. I tell no one of this for 6 months or so. The murder comes up in conversation and I relate my ghost story to my co-workers for the first time. One starts laughing hysterically, literally rolling out of her chair. Alcohol was involved. I'm super confused by her reaction, and as soon as she's reseated, I ask her why she was laughing. She tells me that the murdered woman had a twin sister that came that morning to clear out her desk. TLDR. Thought I saw a ghost. Turns out the dead person had an identical twin.